Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and hopefully you're listening to this the evening of June 5th of the full moon. We're going to talk about that. This is just going to be very few minutes of a little reading session to you, because I can simplify things, but I think that some of the research that I've done to bring to you will make it just a little bit clearer. So the one thing I want to say is welcome. Moon rituals, new moon and full moon. I never understood that. And I'm a scientist at heart, but the more that I've studied over the years and understood that the moon represents water, it represents feminine, it represents nurturing, whereas the sun is the fire, the male, and everybody has that yin and yang, but we really want to balance it. Sometimes we need more sun and sometimes we need more moon, but the full moon ritual lets us get into sync with nature. And again, I'm going to be reading things to you. Honoring the moon reconnects us with the earth's rhythms and our own natural cycles. When we're in sync with nature, it's easier to listen to ourselves, which is critical to building a life that actually works. So especially what we've all been going through in these difficult times, it's a wonderful thing to learn new things and not be a skeptic. So I invite you to table your judgment, as we learn to do in mindful meditation, and look at this scientifically, because as we'll be talking about, we're water. So the moon affects the tides, the energetic forces. So who's to think, as science keeps trying to prove it, that we're not affected? We know that we are by the full moon. So there's just so many wonderful stories and so much wonderful research, but in a very simple way. So the moon has the cycle and the 28-day cycle. So tomorrow, June 5th, which we're going to read about, is going to be a full moon. So after it gets full, right at the point that it's at its brightest, it immediately starts to fade little by little by little. And that's called the waning period. So the full goes into 14 days of the waning period. As everything wanes, we want to release things that don't serve us. And that means physical things, emotional things, objects. But for me, I like to declutter, and I like to work with others to say that we write things down and we see things that don't serve us that we want to change. So you'll see, even with the moon ritual, how this ties in. So as soon as we get a new moon, and we will do a new moon video for you as well, then the moon starts to get bigger, 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 just as it has for these 14 days. And that's the waxing cycle. And then the day, even today, there's a lot of energy because the moon will be at its brightest full tomorrow, June 5th, 2020, at around 3:15 in the afternoon. From the almanac, what it says about the full moon for June 2020. The full moon in June is called a strawberry moon. So the strawberry moon is rising on Friday, June 5th, 2020. And it will take place at 3:12 p.m., but it will not be visible to us right here in New Jersey and in our local area until sunset and moonrise. So look for it tomorrow night and take some pictures and post them and send them to us. So the moon is going to appear large and golden hued. So sometimes it's also called a honeymoon. And coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, June has always been the month of the most marriages, and then a honeymoon. So I think that's pretty cool. If my daughter's listening, she will laugh. I get very excited about all of this. So tomorrow, when you see that full moon, just know that it's the last moon of the spring, the last full moon, and really the first full moon of summer. And the Farmer's Almanac says that moons have a rich history. The Native Americans, they named all these moons. It's just so beautiful to read about it and read about the folklore of all the moons and how they got their names. So with that being said, we're going to go and just learn a little bit right now about harnessing the moon's energy. And that's what happens when we do a full moon or a new moon ritual. And there's a quote that says, "All matter moves with the moon's energy," reminding us that we are part of something much bigger, and that the moon has a powerful influence on all of us, physically, mentally, and spiritually. The moon has such profound energy that, as we know, they say people historically, the moon, lunar, were acting like lunatics. But what you learn as you harness and work with the energy, even a few days before the new moon, by doing breathing and movement, and certainly meditation and different forms of yoga, is that we work in sync with the energy of nature. And then our bodies function so much better, and we become so much more balanced. And the thing also is that we feel healthier, and we feel less anxious and less worried. But again, as you're learning all of this, if you feel a little bit more anxious one day, check with what's going on with the moon, and you'll be learning about when is a full moon, when is a new moon. So with that being said, we're going to learn to harness that energy. And we're going to just discuss the full moon today because it's so powerful. And again, as we said, there's infinite wisdom and it guides us. So if you want to look at this intellectually, that's great. And if you want to take it a step further, I love to look at it scientifically. And then I just love to go with the rituals and the time of the full moon to energize and to balance myself and to release what doesn't serve me. And that's again what's going to happen for the next 14 days, because there is rebirth, new moon and full moon. So when the moon is full, this is the end of the cycle where it's become bigger, 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 the waxing cycle, and now we go into the waning cycle. So after today again, the full moon just starts to get a little less full every single day. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until 14 days later, it disappears to our sight, and it's called the new moon. So people do feel overly emotional and disconnected, it is said, at the peak of this full moon. But we can utilize the moon's energy with a ritual to see the underlying and unconscious reasons for these emotions. But also, we know enough that we're able to say, okay, let's use the energy, and I know that this is the time for me to begin to release what doesn't serve me. Because then, after you do this for the next 14 days, when we come back and do a new moon ritual, then we start to bring in, because then moon gets bigger, 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 then those 14 days we bring in. So don't get scared about me saying releasing things. It's just a beautiful way to declutter our mind, declutter our body, declutter things around us, because that just automatically lets all kinds of good things happen and come in. So the new moon will be completely full just for an instant, but you have the entire night, June 5th, to benefit from its powers. It allows you, again, to get rid of energies that don't serve you in patterns, and again, replace any darkness or negativity with light. And we certainly know right now that we need to bring in as much light as possible in that moonlight. breathe in that light. That is so healthy. It boosts our immune system. It balances our nervous system. It balances our endocrine system. It lowers stress. It just calms us and gives us a sense of well-being. And maybe you'll feel energized as well.